All right, today we move on with division a little bit farther. So what we did yesterday was just division of numbers. Everything worked out magically perfect, divided out evenly every single time. Real world, that very rarely happens. So today we're going to look at a different type of problem. We're going to look at what happens when you have a remainder. And this is always the part that catches us, is how do you interpret what that remainder is? And the biggest difference between how you interpret the remainder is based off of the question. So when we take a look at this problem, it says Ben has 13 muffins. He's putting them in groups of 3. All right, so right away there, I know it's told us the total number of 13. It's also told us the size of the group. So we're doing something about trying to figure out how many groups there are going to be. The problem is I didn't write the question on here because the question is what's going to determine what to do with the leftover part, because I already know when I do 13 divided by 3, it's not going to work out perfectly. So you could have a problem where it says something like he's putting them into groups of 3. How many total groups can he make, or how many full groups can he make? All right. So if that's the question, then we're doing 13 divided by 3, which is 4. Take away 12. I have 1 left over. So 4 remainder 1. But if I ask how many full groups are made, all right, this remainder is not a full group. So that's our first choice to do. We could lose it. If that's the answer choice, then we would go with the answer of 4. Okay, he can make 4 full groups. All right, but I could ask a different question. I could ask, he's putting them into groups of 3. How many bags will he need to pack all of them up? Okay, well, that's different because now he needs 4 bags for these because that's 4 full groups, but he still has 1 left over. If he's packing all of them up, including everything, he needs another bag for it. So that's a round up problem where we are going to have to take this remainder and add 1 extra 1 to our total. Okay, a lot of people get confused by that because sometimes we have a remainder of 4 or 5 or 6, and I don't want to add the remainder onto this. I'm just moving my total up 1 because I want to make 1 more group to include this remainder part. Okay, so that's our second choice. So we have lose the remainder, we have round up, making it the next higher one. So the answer would have been 5. Or I could say, all right, he's putting them in groups of 3. How many groups can he make? All right, now it sounds like, well, he makes 4 groups, but I didn't say total. So technically in this, what I could do, if I wanted a very specific answer, I could actually say, well, he makes 4 groups, and this 1 is still being divided by 3. He actually makes a third of another group. So I could actually turn my remainder into a fraction. So I would have 4 and 1/3 groups is what he could make. Okay, that would be ones where he's not asking for a specific whole number, like a set number of bags or something along those lines. I just want to know how many did he make exactly, and he exactly made 4 and 1/3. So that's a choice. Then things get even trickier when sometimes I don't even care about how many groups he's made. I only care about the remainder. So what I could say is a question like this. He's putting them in groups of 3. If he bags them all up, how many extras will he have left that don't fit into a full bag of 3? All right, well, that would be a question where the remainder is the answer. That's what I'm looking for, how many leftovers there are. And then the super ultra tricky one is where I use the remainder to find the answer, but the remainder itself isn't the answer. Those are the ones that really throw us off. So those questions would sound more like, all right, he's putting them in groups of 3. How many more muffins will he need to fill up the last bag? Okay, that's very different because we know he has 1 extra one. Okay, and if I wanted to make another full bag, okay, and I'm looking at it, well, I need 3 for a full bag. I have 1 left over. That means I would need 2 more muffins to complete it, to make that last full bag. So that would be one where I would use the remainder to find the answer. All right. The biggest part of this, whenever we're doing these, is you just have to understand what all of these pieces mean. You have to understand that 13 was the total we started with. You have to understand you're breaking it up into groups of 3. When we got 4 here, you have to know that you made 4 groups and that the remainder is leftover individual muffins. All right. If you can keep track of what all of those pieces are, then it becomes easier to answer the question. Ultimately, though, the biggest thing when you go to any division problem, if you have a remainder and you're trying to figure out what to do with the remainder, the majority of the problem is not going to help you with that. What's going to help you is the question. So when you have a remainder, go back and read the question. You have 5 choices for things you could do. That's not even including decimal points, which is basically the same as fractions. So you could be looking for full sets. So then you wouldn't care about the remainder because you don't care about the extra. You could be having to include everything, meaning you can't leave anything behind. Those are a lot of our people problems where you can't leave someone behind. Then you'd have to round up to the next full number. You could be looking for an exact amount. So that would be somewhere where you could turn it into a fraction or a decimal. So 4 1/3 would work. Or they might be asking you in the question about how many are left over. So that's when the remainder itself is the answer. And like I said, the trickiest of them all, when they're asking you to use the remainder, but the remainder isn't the answer. Those almost always are very consistently how many do you need to finish the group or something along those answers. That's where you use the remainder to find it, but the remainder isn't the answer. Okay, so today when you're working on problems and you have a remainder left over, look back at the question. Look to see what it's asking. Are you looking for full groups? Are you looking to include everything? Do you need something exact? Do you only care about the leftover? Okay, that's what you want to be looking at and paying attention to. That will help you figure out what to do with any remainders.